together. Okay, first quote, our brains are like plastic and we have the ability to shape them throughout our entire lives. I love that. The single most important thing for optimizing brain function is sleep. We're going to talk a lot about that again this year, why it's important, what it does for your health, and how to get more of it and better quality sleep. I really liked this third quote. Stress is not always bad. It can be a powerful motivator to help us perform at our best, but it becomes a problem when it is chronic and unremitting. I like that perspective because I think we talk about stress as something evil and something that we should have none of in our life. And that's just simply not true. The problem is when it takes over your life and keeps you from progressing, meeting your goals, functioning at a high capacity, all of those things, that's when it becomes a problem. But stress actually should be embraced in the right quantities. So keeping that in perspective is important. Also in this series, we dive a lot into what stress looks like, how it affects us, how it affects our health, how it affects our goals at healthy and unhealthy levels, how to manage it better. And again, remember, we're not saying eliminate it, we're saying manage it. And then this last one, I just wanted to throw in there kind of as a celebration for tonight. The most effective way to learn something is to teach it to someone else. And I just want to take a second to thank you all who have joined us this year. My growth through doing this project has been exponential, and I hope that we have been able to learn and grow together. But certainly, I feel like the beneficiary of so much of this amazing information that I've learned and been able to share with you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, as we look back on this year and forward to the next year, in March, our first month of this series, we start by exploring our personal histories and identifying areas for growth. So I just put 4 bullet points of kind of the highlights to get you excited about what we're going to explore. And then on the next slide, after each unit, we're going to go through all 12 months of the year. I want you to just take a second and think about, maybe drop in the comments. If you, sorry, let me backtrack there. I started too many sentences at once. We're going to just reflect on what is something in this unit that you are either excited to learn about or excited to learn more about if you've already learned some about it, or an area that you're excited to grow in. And I hope you'll ponder that for each of these units. We're just going to take maybe 2 minutes per unit to kind of think about that. But I also hope that if you've been with us for a lot of the last year, or some of the last year, if you remember some of these lessons and there was something that spoke to you or helped you, maybe drop that in the comments for others so that we can kind of learn from each other. I would really appreciate that. Okay, so kind of the takeaways from Unit 1 that we're going to cover. Basically, we always have to start with a self-assessment of where we are at, not only in our level of knowledge, but what our behaviors look like. And so the assessment that we're going to start with next week is going to be just an honest way to look through what we know, what we don't know, and where our behaviors are at. It shouldn't be a positive or a negative thing. It shouldn't be shame-based or guilt-based. It should be all about where am I today so that I can know where my areas of growth need to be. And that can be a powerful thing if we can approach it without judgment, without shame. So we're going to start with that next week. Then we dive into our own family history and our own history with eating patterns. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because sometimes facing our past can be a little bit painful. But the reality is that if any of us are trying to improve our lifestyle behaviors, for better or worse, there are probably pieces of that stem back to our childhoods and to our past. And identifying those pieces, again, without shame or judgment, no judgment for our parents, no judgment for our caregivers, no judgment for ourselves, but just recognizing, okay, that's where that behavior, that's where that mindset, that's where that habit came from. So then we can then shift that forward. Okay. Emotional health is a big one. And also in each of these slides, I mentioned who our guest speaker was that month. Because if this is a topic that feels like something you want to explore more, we will probably have some of the same guests return next year, but we will also have a lot of new ones. So there will be pieces, the unique parts of last year that may not come forward to this year will be some of our guest speakers. So I encourage you, if you see a topic that you're like, oh man, I'd really like to dive into that more, to go back and find those webinars and watch those replays. We had a guest, Whitney Bean, who is an emotional resilience coach, wellness coach. And she came and talked to us about not neglecting our emotional health. And she gave us some great tools and handouts of ways that we can really kind of get a little bit more in touch with where we're at emotionally, and kind of be more aware of that so that we can improve it. It was a great webinar. So I encourage you to listen to what she has to say if you would like to do that. And then finally, we end with really exploring how we are speaking to ourselves. And I think you might be surprised with this series of questions and thought-provoking thoughts that we have. You might be surprised that the way you speak to yourself is maybe more negative than you even realize. So when we realize that and can recognize it, then we can start shifting it. So that is what Unit 1 looks like. So I'm going to give you just 1 to 2 minutes. I want you to think and drop in the comments if you were with us for Unit 1, maybe some of the things you liked about it. If you weren't, maybe some of the things you're excited to learn about it. So we'll just take a minute and do that. Okay, so that was our Unit 1 preview. Thank you, Chrissy, for the request. What I'll do in the future is I'll move on to that slide, and then I'll back up so that you can look at the list again. Okay, and if you're not sharing it here, that's okay. And thank you for those of you who did. I appreciate that. But make sure to write it down so that you can kind of remember throughout the coming year what you wanted to really focus on. Okay. So Unit 2, we're going to dive into physical activity. It seems appropriate to put that right at the beginning of the series, right? That's one of our main pillars. So we're going to start by identifying the problems, the excuses, and the unmet needs behind why we're struggling to maybe incorporate more physical activity into our routines. Because when we identify those 3 things, first, what's the problem? Second, what excuses am I making? Those 2 things are separate, right? There can be concrete problems, and then there can be excuses that we can recognize and overcome. And then this one, I think, is so important, is let's identify the unmet need, because when we ignore the unmet needs, then it becomes unsustainable. So we're going to dive into that on week 1. Then we look at what kind of exercises are the most fun for you. So important. So often we try to force ourselves to do things that we hate. This unit really helps us explore what is something that would be sustainable because I really could enjoy it. I could actually do this for my life, right? And then we had a guest speaker, my friend Chelsea McShane, who is a former professional volleyball player. She talked to us about the importance of muscle building, how you can effectively build muscle. And then this was such a cool webinar. She walked us through in her own home gym several ways that you can start at home, in ways that it doesn't matter what level you're at. She'll start you at home with very basic exercises and then teach you how to progress through those as you get stronger. This was such a fun one to watch because she took us through a full personal training session. So go back and watch that one if you'd like to. It was really fun. And then we talk about sleep, which sounds kind of funny with physical activity, but the hours that we sleep are just we're moving. And so I thought that was an appropriate place to put that. I love the lecture on sleep because it really dives into the physiological reasons that we need sleep, what it does to our body when we don't sleep, and then some really great tips on how to recognize what your problems are with sleep and how to address those problems. So that is what Unit 2 will look like. This is my friend Chelsea here playing volleyball for BYU a few years back. And I'll give you just a minute to think about what pieces of physical activity you're excited to improve at or learn more about. I love these comments that you're making in the comments. Keep them up. This is great. Okay, unit 3, we dive into nutrition. It makes sense to do nutrition right after physical activity, doesn't it? There's several pieces to this. I'm going to kind of skip to the end here. The most obvious one is understanding the nutrients that make up our foods. We really like to talk a lot in this webinar series and also in Dr. Shill's office about how we need to take the stigma out of food altogether. There's no good foods, there's no bad foods, it's just food. They all give you energy at different levels, and your body needs different amounts of different kinds of foods. And so if we can understand the nutrients in different foods and then focus not on scarcity mentality, which is getting rid of all of the sugar, which certainly we want to do in moderation, but instead, if we can focus on how do we fill our body full of the nutrients that it needs to function at its highest level, and then let the rest fall into place, that is an essential piece of education that helps us shift our mindsets and our habits in the way that we're approaching food. So that's actually what we end this unit on. But other pieces that we focus on, overcoming time and money barriers to eating high nutrient dense foods. A lot of people think that those two things are their biggest barriers to eating nutrient dense. And so that's something that we explore. We also take time to really understand what our own eating habits look like and bring awareness to that so that we can focus on areas that we need to shift and change. And then the guest for that month, again, if you want to go back and watch, he was wonderful. Benny Crocker owns a business here in Spokane Valley called Fitness with Benny's. He's so inspirational because about 5 years ago, he lost 80 pounds. He overcame a drug addiction. He has overcome huge obstacles in his life and now is as fit as anybody we know and regularly attends the gym and owns his own business where he works. He approaches it from a ministry perspective, really focuses on the religious side of things while also focusing on physical health. And he's very inspirational. He talked a lot about his transformation and how you can make sustainable changes. And coming from someone who has walked the walk and done it, he was so inspirational. A little side note about Benny. He has offered to partner with us in coming month. He has a movement for chronic pain patients clinic that he's going to offer to our patients. If you are interested in participating in that, that will be an added cost, but it will be highly valuable. It'll be a one-time, a one event deal. So just be on one day. And if you are interested in that, please contact myself or Dr. Shill for more information. We'd love to get you scheduled for that. I guess we do have a date. It will be on Friday, March 14th at what time? Multiple times available. So if you are someone that struggles with chronic pain and wants more ideas on how to get moving with that pain and can afford a little bit of extra cost, then we highly recommend his workshop. And he's so inspirational and encouraging and positive and fun to be around. So just a little note about that. Okay. Here is our reflection. Go ahead and think about and drop in the comments. What are you most excited to learn more about or improve on when it comes to nutrition? Okay, I'm loving your comments. And I just wanted to add as well that the comments you make help influence the webinar content. So if I'm seeing that there's something in particular that you want more of or want more specific information on, I can help cater to that based on your needs and your comments. So please keep those coming so we can help make these as valuable as possible for you with this information. Okay, so moving on to unit 4. I don't know if I can pick a favorite because every unit we go to, I just think, man, this information is so amazing. But this was one of my favorites. And so sorry, my train of thought got a little bit off there, but what I want to say about lifestyle medicine is this: lifestyle medicine is an entire branch of medicine. It is not it's not a branch that's like a totally different degree, like naturopaths or different types of health and wellness degrees. This is an organization that is run by medical doctors, MDs and DOs, and its entire focus, and I'm going to give you a little spoiler here, 80% of chronic diseases can be managed or even reversed with basic lifestyle changes. And that's this entire branch of medicine is dedicated to understanding how we can help people change their lifestyles to reverse disease instead of just doing it with medication. And as we know, medication doesn't reverse disease, it simply deals with symptoms. So I love this. Dr. Shill and I have done a lot of researching and studying on this together. We've attended a lot of online conferences and done a lot of reading and done a lot of studying. And a lot of our practice is based on this idea that we can help you shift your lifestyle to make you healthy and to shift and get away from a lot of chronic diseases that most people think that they're going to just have for life and they have no options. So there's 6 pillars to lifestyle medicine. I'm not going to give them all away tonight. Certainly physical activity and nutrition are 2 of those, but join us in June and learn more about how to maximize your health and to find balance in your life. That's really what these 6 pillars do, is they help you to find this balance that really improves and enhances your quality of life. And that's, I think, why I love it, is just this is the roadmap to a higher quality of life. In this month, our guest speaker was Kathy Rollins. She's actually a registered nurse that lives in California. And she's amazing. She has started her own business. It's not a medical practice because she's not licensed to practice medicine, but she's used all of the principles of lifestyle medicine that she has learned as a nurse, and she helps teach that to her patients. And she helps them find reductions of pain through movement and through different types of meditation and stress management and all of that kind of stuff. So she does things within her license based on this structure of lifestyle medicine to help people improve their lifestyle. And she has some amazing stories about how she's helped people with Parkinson's disease reduce their symptoms, how she's helped people with chronic pain. It was really an amazing webinar to listen to. And then managing stress. That's another piece that we talk about with lifestyle medicine. So I'll give you just a minute to think on that and leave your comments. Awesome. Thank you for your comments. Love the comments. Love how I'm going to go back through as we plan this next year's webinars, and I'm going to look at these comments to help me angle some of these webinars to what you're saying. So thank you. Okay, we did a quick midsummer mini series in July. We're going to plan to do that again. Summer is busy with vacations, and certainly our family likes to take vacations too. And so we just do a 2-week session in July, and then we take a 2-week break. But I thought it was so fun in the summer to really focus on how to eat while you're on the road and how to exercise while you're on the road. And that was the first week that we really focus on how we can enjoy our vacations and enjoy all the things that we want to do on vacations, including the food we want to eat on vacations, without losing all of our progress. And so we're going to really talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how you manage eating out. And we've said this before, we'll say it again. We've said it a million times. We are not the practice that is going to tell you that you can never eat your favorite foods again. What we do is we help you drop your weight significantly so that we can teach you these skills of how to maintain it at a healthy weight, while finding a healthy balance. So you will find that you will eat some of these foods less than you used to, but it doesn't mean that you can never go out to eat with your family at your favorite restaurant again. You just might not be doing it every week anymore. So we're going to teach you some of the techniques, some of the easy ways, even when you're there at a restaurant, to make sure that you manage your choices in such a way that you can still have that experience that you want, and not lose sight of your goals and not lose your progress. So that's a really fun one. And I hope it's a really encouraging one too, that you can feel like you don't have to eat lettuce for the rest of your life. So that is that one. We're going to just take 30 seconds on this one because it's a little bit of a shorter one, but go ahead and I forgot to move it back on the last one. So I'll just go ahead and stay right there. Okay, moving right along. Um, okay, again, another one of my favorites. It's hard to choose a favorite. I loved this unit on emotional resilience and self-care. I am passionate about emotional resilience. I'm not always as good at it as I want to be, but I have learned so much about it, and it has improved my quality of life, and it has changed the choices that I make. So I love this unit on taking care of yourself and learning to manage your emotions. It's funny how, as parents, we oftentimes scold children or get frustrated with them for not having good emotional resilience, right? Toddlers that throw tantrums, or even 12-year-olds or 15-year-olds that throw tantrums, right? And we think, you're too old for this. And then we turn around and we throw adult temper tantrums. I don't know if I'm the only one that's ever done that. But learning to manage our emotions is a skill. And if it wasn't modeled for you, it's going to be more difficult than if it was. But regardless of your past behaviors or your past exposures, we can all learn, like Dr. Huberman said in that quote at the beginning, we can all learn to better manage our own emotions. And this unit kind of walks you through how to do that, starting with, again, paying attention to our inner self talk and our inner voice, and intentionally making it more positive. We spend a whole unit or a whole lesson on that one. Surrounding yourself with your people. We'll teach you how to do that, how to find your people. If you haven't found your people, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I love that quote. And how to kind of influence that in your life. I'm a little biased to this guest speaker. She was my sister. She is my sister. And this was one of my favorite guest speakers that we had. I think they all kind of were, but I loved what she had to say. She had been through a fairly traumatic personal experience and learned what self-care looked like through that, learned how to change the way she was caring for herself to change the trajectory of some of what was happening in her life, and just had the most beautiful and hopeful perspective about what it's like to come out of trauma on the other side and be stronger and better and have this peace, this inner peace, and this wise perspective. So if that speaks to you, I encourage you to go back and watch that one. It was just beautiful, the things that she shared. We talk about journaling, which most people think is boring and dumb. And this unit hopefully helps you realize that it can be enjoyable and effective and can bring a new sense of clarity and peace into your life. So get excited for that one, even if journaling doesn't seem like your thing. And then learning how to influence your environment to help you succeed better. Okay. Unit 7, time management and goal setting. I love time management and goal setting talk. I learned a lot about how I do it and how I can improve on it. Learning to better manage our time is essential to creating space. And I am passionate about this idea of creating space. We have to learn to cut things so that we create the space needed in our schedule and our brain to be able to make some of these lifestyle changes that are difficult. And we have to have space to be able to do that. And so learning to better manage our time, learning what to cut out, learning what's important and what can wait, those are essential skills that we will walk you through to create this space for growth. And then we'll talk a lot about goal setting, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, and it certainly is different for every person, but we'll give you some tips and some ideas to try on how to be more effective with your goal setting. And then we also cover shopping for food, how to do it, how to succeed at eating before you even hit the table, based on the way that you shop, some really fun tips and tricks to make that easier and more efficient and more valuable for you. And then meal planning. We talk all about meal planning and how we can help you with that. And when we do the meal planning, one of the things that I like to do is go through what a meal plan can look like if you're trying to get enough fiber in your diet, if you're trying to get enough protein in your diet, like the ways that we're trying to teach you to eat, let us show it to you on paper. And if you have nowhere to start, you can start with that and you can just follow it to a T until you can kind of branch out and explore and do similar things on your own. So we try to give you some really basic places to start there. I honestly can't remember because it's not right in front of me if it's in this unit or another one, but we talk about how most people eat the same 10 to 12 meals every week or every month. Now, certainly you might be thinking, oh man, I have a repertoire of 30 to 50 meals. And if you do, that's great. And you might be thinking, I have one meal, and that's great too. But most of us have our go-tos, right? And usually that's less than 10, whether it's, I have probably 5 go-tos for breakfast, and I have probably 10 go-tos for dinner. And then I probably have another 30 or 40 that I rotate through. But the ones that I keep coming back to are pretty similar. So that's really encouraging, right? If we can identify what our 10 are, what our 10 main ones are, it doesn't mean you never eat anything else, but what are my go-tos? And then we can practice shifting them one at a time. And it doesn't seem like that hard of a shift if we're really only looking at 10 main meals. So the reason I bring this up is that one of the benefits of the workbook is that you're going to actually have a place in your workbook to write down and think about what are my 10. And so start thinking about that now, because when we get to that unit, you can kind of have that idea in your head already. And then when you're working with Dr. Schill in your transition phase, he's going to have you bring that notebook and open it up. And if you haven't done it already, maybe you're not to that, maybe you haven't seen that unit yet. But either way, you're going to have that written down, and he's going to help you tweak those one by one. And he's going to work with you personally on this plan that you've helped create. And so that's part of the value that we can add, is that we can really work with you one-on-one on some of these shifts. So that's an exciting thing that comes up there. I just want to touch on this too. My really good friend from Iowa, Jen Mitchell, was our guest speaker this month, and she has a third of an acre backyard that she has turned into a farm. Basically, they bring in almost 2,000 pounds of produce a year. They sell produce, they grow it, they can it, they steam it, they dry it, you name it, they do it. And she had just the most fascinating webinar where I interviewed her, and she told us where you can start if you've never grown anything in your life and what the benefits of growing fresh are. And that was just a really fun one, a fascinating one too. So go ahead and let you think on that for just a minute. Okay. I apologize for all the doors opening and shutting. I have the cutest little 4-year-old on earth who's not loving being downstairs with his siblings tonight. So he might join me in a minute. Okay, Unit 8. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. It is one of my favorites. I know I say that on every single one, but I love this unit on accepting and embracing change. We are wired to resist change. We like to be where we're comfortable. We talked last month. I don't think it was last week. No, it was a couple weeks ago. We talked about this idea of getting out of our comfort zones. Our brains are wired to stay where it's comfortable, and because of that, we hate change. Now, we don't always hate change. There's times when we enjoy it or embrace it, but mostly we're wired to resist change. But if you think about it, any of these goals that we're setting for ourselves are going to require large amounts of change. And so we teach you how to not only accept it, but how to embrace it and how to look for it and how to go after it. And we teach you how to view it differently so that as you're pursuing these goals, the fear of change or the rejection of change or the resistance of change won't stand in your way anymore. Um, we're going to talk about motivation, what to do when you don't have it. I mean, I think all of us have been there, especially when you're doing a year-long program and you're trying to make big changes in your life. And sometimes you're hitting that middle of the marathon where you're just tired and you see how far you still have to go. What do we do when our motivation runs out? What's the difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation? And how do you use both to your advantage? How do we reward ourselves? What are some good ways to reward ourselves? What are some ideas for rewards that we can have for ourselves? And then when we change, when we finally accept and embrace that change, how do we make sure that those changes are sustainable? How do we keep those changes? And that's really what we're all about in this program. We are not the program that wants you to drop weight fast and then dump you out on the street and say good luck. Our entire focus is how do we help you make a long-term shift that will bless you for the rest of your life, that will change the trajectory of your life, that will probably change the length and the quality of, and certainly the quality of your life. That is what we're here for. And so that's what we're going to talk about in this unit. Um, I can't help but say this was another one of my favorite guest speakers. Man, it was so good. My friend Whitney Anderson, trained nutritionist and former personal trainer for weight loss patients. She is passionate about the idea of learning principles of intuitive eating, which essentially means we are not focused on dieting. We are not focused on deprivation. We are focused on learning what our body is telling us about what it needs and responding to those needs. Instead of responding to our emotions, instead of responding to our habits, we're responding because we are in tune with what our body needs. And it was just the most amazing webinar. So I encourage you to go back and review that one. So good. So here's some thoughts about change for a minute. Okay. Unit 9, problem solving and taking responsibility. Man, what an important piece of this process. We cannot make progress until we take responsibility and ditch victim mentality. Victim mentality is handcuffs. And it is so easy to end up there because it is initially easier to assume victim mentality and to complain about how hard it is and justify how we can't make progress because it's too hard. That is easier than taking responsibility for our own successes and stumbles, right? But the minute that we can finally ditch the victim mentality and say, I'm responsible for whether I succeed or not, and I'm okay with failing sometimes. That's okay because I just keep going. I just keep trying again, and that's okay. When we can do that, that's when we really start to move forward. And so I love this unit because it's just so empowering to understand that we really can find freedom in taking responsibility for our own choices, for our own successes. And I have seen it again and again when people will take that responsibility. It doesn't matter how many times they fail in the interim, they will always succeed. And we know that every one of our patients can have that success if you will learn how to do that one thing. And then problem solving. What do we do when we make mistakes? What do we do when and I don't even like to call them mistakes. What do we do when we deviate from our plan? What do we do when we make a choice that we don't want to make, or that we um, that we don't want to, that we're not proud of? How do we handle that? How do we move forward with that? And then learning healthy coping mechanisms, right? Um, so um, and then finally learning good communication that helps us advocate for our own needs in respectful and kind ways. And one thing I really like to emphasize when we're advocating for our own needs, it's so important. It's so important to be our own best advocates, and it's so important to learn good self-care. We talk so much about self-care in this year-long course. But another thing that's really important is that we can get really obsessed with self-advocacy and self-care, and it honestly turns us inward and makes us miserable. So we have to be careful when we're advocating for ourselves, which is an important part of this process, right? And when we're focused on self-care, that we still are finding joy in looking outward and not just focusing inward. That's an important piece of that balance. And balance is everything when it comes to healthy lifestyles. Okay, so I'll give you just a second to think on that. Thank you again for your comments. We're going to breeze through these last few because I know our time's running short. Um, we're going to focus at Christmas time. This is another short mini series because the holidays are busy, and yet we also know that it's really important to focus on health around the holidays while still giving ourselves a lot of grace to enjoy the holidays. Right? There are ways that we can enjoy the holidays and not lose all of our progress. We'll help teach you how. The way we like to do the Christmas mini series is to just do 2 guest speakers that month. We don't do modules or workbooks that month. We actually ended up with only one just because of some scheduling conflicts this last year, but I loved it. It was so wonderful. I had guest Dr. Tony Lundberg, who helped train Dr. Schill and helped basically raise me from a 16-year-old working in his clinic as the front receptionist at the desk, and then later back as a medical assistant in the back working with him one-on-one. And he is a wonderful mentor and example to both my husband and I, and he had such beautiful insights and advice to give after 30 years in practice about how our health is the gift that we give ourselves, what it looks like when we prioritize our own health. And it was just such a timely message right at Christmas time. I'm not going to do reflection on this one just because it was based on guest speakers. I would encourage you again, go back and watch that webinar if that speaks to you. It was a really wonderful one. So moving on, Unit 11 hits right in January. We just went through this. So many of you who have just joined us may have remembered this one, but we focus on how, and this is my new favorite quote. My husband and I were talking in the last week, and I said, sometimes we think that shaming our past, oh man, there's no excuse for what I did last week. There's no excuse for what I did over the holidays. We think that that's going to somehow justify, we're going to say we're not making excuses, and that's the reason for shaming our past. But the truth is, shaming the past is completely ineffective in making change, because it burdens us with guilt, which then actually encourages us to make more choices that we're not proud of. And so if we can always look back with grace, always, you know what, let's think about this. Okay, it was the holidays. It was hard. We were exhausted. We had a lot of parties that, let's give ourselves grace for that. I had a really rough couple of months. I had surgery. I didn't, but I'm just giving an example. I had surgery, and then one of my kids was sick for 2 weeks. And then, let's give yourself grace for that. Okay. That's why I stalled out this month. Okay. There's a lot of reasons why, and that is okay. And I can give myself grace and understanding for that, just like you would a good friend. The no excuses comes from looking forward. So we give ourselves grace looking back, and then we don't excuse going forward. We say, this was a hard month, or this was Christmas month and I chose to do that. Now we're at the new year. It's a reset point. It's a great time to look forward without excuses. And I love that. So no matter what choices you made over the holidays, we're going to reflect, reset, refocus, and recommit to our goals. And New Year's is the perfect time to do that. We talked earlier about finding your people. I just had to throw this in. My birthday's in January, so January is a fun month for me anyway. These are some of my people. I wrote a post back in January about this day, and I won't go into it in great detail, but your people are the people that give you grace and don't let you get away with excuses. And I think both of the people in this picture, among many others in my life, are such good examples to me of that. They give me so much grace for all of my weaknesses. They love me for me, no matter what. And when I'm down on the floor, panting and borderline crying, not really, but sure that I can't get up and do one more push-up, they also say, you can do this. You can keep going. Don't make excuses. Finish the job. And I'm so grateful for the people in my life that do that. We will help you find your people. We will be some of your people. We will create opportunities for you to meet more of your people, because that's such an essential part of healthy lifestyle, balance, and the ability and the strength to make the changes in your life. So January is all about new beginnings. I love January. And we had guest Jeff Perry join us in January to talk all about living a life of intentionality. It was so great. He had so many great one-line quotes that keep ringing through my head. And the things that he suggested are actually goals that I've made for myself that I am still doing. So that was a really inspirational one. We also talked about mindful eating and portion control in January, both of which were great and helpful topics. As you're thinking about this, I want to just add one more thing about this picture. I added this picture, and this is my youngest baby brother. This fall, he went and hiked the Grand Canyon with my dad, the rim to rim. And last year, he actually did rim to rim to rim. So I just also wanted to add that January is a time when we refocus on our long-term goals. What are the things that you want to be able to do in your life? And what do you need to do to be able to get there? Even if it's a long way off, even if it's years off, what are your dreams and your goals, and how can we make short-term goals today to get you to where you want to be? So let's just wrap up here with Unit 12. If you weren't here with us last week, please go back and watch this interview we did with Steve and Sarah, who are with us tonight. Hi, guys. So glad they joined us last week. This was so inspirational. We had real life ShillMed patients who have been through this 12-month program with us, who have had enormous success. And yet we're also willing to share some of their struggles and how they have overcome those struggles, and how they're still working on some pieces of their journey, but how this combination of determination and vision for what they wanted out of life has literally changed their lives, and it can change your life too. I also just want to add that Steve and Sarah have agreed to be our first mentors in our pilot program. So I want to remind you, if you haven't signed up and would like to work with a mentor, they both agreed to take on just a couple of patients each. And what they'll do is just reach out to you regularly, help encourage you, give you tips, kind of be a sounding board, when you're struggling, kind of help you through some of that, help you find motivation when you're lacking it. In addition to what we offer you at ShillMed, we felt it would be so appropriate and helpful to have peer mentors. Our hope is to grow this program so that eventually mentoring is just part of what you sign up for in the beginning. And hopefully at the end of the program, everyone participates in some capacity as a mentor, because mentoring actually solidifies everything that you've learned in new ways. So we're excited to start this program and expand it. Please reach out to us if you feel you could benefit from starting with our pilot program. We're not charging any additional cost for now. Also in month 12, most of you have been here, so you know, but this is where we kind of bring it all together. We talk about all the different ways to measure your success. And then we talk about what it looks like to take all of these principles we've learned of healthy eating and exercising and mindsets and healthy emotional and mental habits, and how we project those into a lifetime of healthy and happy and fulfilled living. Not a life of depravity and scarcity, but a life that you want to be living, that you will say, like Sarah did on the webinar last week, where has this been for so long, and why did I wait so long to get here? That is our goal for you, and we will carry you through all the way. And even after you're done with the 12-month program, if you choose to, we have maintenance programs, expansion programs. We have all kinds of ways that we can help keep you on track in a much lesser capacity, but as much as you need us. So that is our goal. Just give you just a minute here at the end, just to think back on this unit and just all the units, see if there's anything else that you want to write down or share about things that you want to be stronger at, learn more about, and then we'll just do a really quick wrap up to end the night. I'm seeing that our time is getting late. So I just want to say, as we wrap up this year, how grateful I am to be a part of your lives. I have loved building this program from the ground up with my husband. We have had such an amazing time creating this together and getting to know each of you and being so inspired by your determination and your stories. And as I have stepped back recently and will continue to step back in larger capacities, I'll still be doing these webinars, but as we've hired new employees, I've made deliberate attempts to step back and be more present at home with my kids again, which is my most important job, and where I've always wanted to be most. But it has meant that I have had less patient interaction on a day-to-day basis with all of you. But I hope that you know that even you newer patients that I haven't had a chance yet to get to know as well, I want you to know that I have valued my interactions with every one of you and been so inspired by each of you. And when we began this business, we kind of coined the slogan, "Come as patients, leave as friends." And I hope that you feel that from us. I hope you feel how deeply we care about our patients, how much we enjoy getting to know you, how much we enjoy spending time with you, how much we love to see your successes, and how we will continue to help you every step of the way as much as you'll allow us to. So thank you. Thank you for this year. Thank you for being with us tonight. We're not saying goodbye. We're starting fresh and with more information and more resources in the beginning of next year, or next week. Hello, next week. So please join us next week. This is going to be the week that we really walk you through how to use this workbook to be most successful. We're actually going to take next week's webinar, put it on our website, and ask everybody when they join the practice to really go through the information that helps you maximize your use of the workbook and to really start this fresh. But I promise you, the information in this series, so much of it doesn't come from me. Some of it comes from us, but so much of it comes from people that have been in this field for decades and have done all of this research to know what weight loss patients need to hear to maximize their success. And I promise you that if you will dive into this material with me and really take time to explore it with these workbooks, you will find that your transformation is real and easier than you think, and that you will see the results that you're looking for, and that will help you get there. Remember always, the future is bright. We will help you find the future that is bright and keep it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you again next week.